In today's video, I'm gonna be talking about the ongoing research on healing methods and how I believe that consciousness and the research of consciousness is tied to healing. I made a video a while ago. I've been doing these videos related to healing and the effects of mindfulness on consciousness and maybe even intention. Some people call it energy healing, some people call it fate healing, some people call it the placebo effect. It does not matter what you call it. There's something going on and people are trying to figure out what exactly is going on. I made a few videos about this. Some are better received than others. My latter one, all of the videos related to this topic are going to be on the description section of this video, since it's research that is being stacked upon. So if you find this interesting, I've talked about this before, and what I want to do with this channel is leave some sort of an archive, so when someone starts digging into these topics, they can go through some of the other videos and find some information which might be useful to them and maybe to others, especially today when we have the whole thing about the pandemic and there's a lot of there are a lot of heated discussions on whether the treatments against it are useful or not. We don't even know what's going on, but in any case, going with the topic, the latter video that I posted about this was about the quote-unquote prayer efficiency in healing. Now, as I said, a lot of people misunderstand what I'm talking about. A lot of people think I'm making some sort of apology to Christianity, and you know, the comments that I got from that video on social media were like, oh, this does not exist, go pray to your God. I'm not even talking about that. If you are truly interested in this, please go to the content before commenting. What I'm talking about is what might be behind all of this. Prayer is simply a ritual of intention. When people pray for something, they're doing an intention, something in their mind. And in this article that I'm going to be reviewing today, they speak about how the placebo effect works upon the expectation, the ability of the brain to create a future. I've talked about this, also related to some of the scriptures on prayer in our ancient philosophies. I might tie this somewhere on the screen, or as I said, everything related pertaining to this video is going to be linked below. So yeah, in this article, they specifically state that the ability for the brain to create a future situation in their mind is crucial to the effect of the placebo effect. But now we have to draw a line here, because on the article they keep going, oh yeah, the brain is creating this, it's the brain's expectation. What we're starting to talk about is an ontological factor. The idea of creating an idea of the future, that those mental images that nobody can see. I approached this before. This is an ontological theme. This is not a response from the body. This is a thought in action. A lot of people think that the placebo effect is useful and is efficient because it triggers the self-healing nature of the body, and that absolutely makes sense, and that is actually what happens. There's these opioids going on which help the body heal. But how does the body know specific things that happen that I'm going to be looking for in this article? How does it expect that future idea? That is an ontological aspect of it, and we have to look at it in depth to truly understand it. As part of this, as I said, there are many discussions going on regarding of the current pandemic that our world is going through, and the methods and the treatments against it, and how the BAXX, I'm gonna be spelling it this way because I don't want my video to be flagged or to be cancelled in any way, although I'm not speaking neither in a negative way or in a positive way, in a con way or a pro way to one way or the other. I'm just trying to figure out what the medical fields are researching in terms of the placebo effect. So I might address this as the BAXX. A lot of people don't know if these are useful, if these aren't useful, if they can have some secondary effects or not. So what the research on this placebo effect is showing is that it depends on you. Do you think it's going to work? Do you think it's not going to work? Do you think you're going to have secondary effects? Do you think it's going to kill you? Even the illness itself. Do you think it's just a flu? Do you think you can overcome it? Do you think it's the worst thing that has happened in the world, and then it's more likely that something very bad is going to happen to you? what is the idea that your brain is creating in the future. As I said, this is something that has been currently studied and that is being currently theorized, and I'm going to offer some of the articles and some of the people who are researching this. This is an ongoing research, and all of the links and everything are going to be on the description below. As a bit of a side note, I've been meaning to make these videos a little bit more pragmatic, a little bit more easy to digest, but sadly that is impossible at the moment for me, and there's a lot of information that I have to cover. So if I'm going too fast, I apologize in advance, and if there are any questions, you can contact me on Facebook, you can message me. I'm open to answer any questions that anybody might have on any of these issues. Before I move forward, I would like to remind you that if you want to join the growing discussion on consciousness and would like to be notified on the latest scientific discoveries and theories surrounding this topic and how they connect to ancient mythologies and philosophies, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, as I'll try to upload at least one video per week as I continue with the outline. Alright, so for today's video, as I said, I wanted to do something else. I wanted to go back into the outline and focus on the contents of the book and develop a chapter, but there are a lot of things going on in the world right now, and I feel that this is pertinent to the current situation. So as part of this ongoing research, as I said, I've been trying to figure out the whole thing with this quote-unquote energy healing, faith healing, and whatsoever. And I was doing a little bit of research on this gentleman named Jose Silva, who is one of these faith healers, and I'm gonna go in depth into what he has to say in the future. However, I found this related to this article that I found this other article from 2009, I believe. It's a fair of an old article, but it's very, very good. So I'm gonna link it below. I would advise anyone who is interested in this to look into it. As I said, I've spoken about the placebo effect. I'm gonna link it right now on the screen if anybody's interested about that one, because I had a broad idea on that one, and I made like a basis for this placebo effect, and now I'm gonna go deeper into what seems to be happening with this placebo effect. But in any case, going with the other okay, so does this mind-body healing phenomenon heal all diseases, including cancer? How 6.5 million people have used the phenomenon of body-mind healing to curb virtually every disease, including cancer. Go through the research, go through the reports. There are reports for everything, every single illness out there. They're not like highly documented because we're barely beginning to start on that, but there are a lot of these quote-unquote medical miracles that happen, and people are starting to understand what it is. As I said, it's this gentleman named Jose Silva believed that 90% of all illnesses are caused by the mind. Now, there is this thing called psychosomatic, and this is a term coined and understood by the medical fields. An illness is called psychosomatic when there appears to be no medical basis or physical reason for the illness. It usually originates from emotional stress or damaging thought patterns and manifests into physical symptoms. Psychosomatic illness can manifest itself as asthma, heart disease, lower back pain, high blood pressure, peptic ulcers, irritable bowel syndrome, chronic inflammatory respiratory disease, so on and so forth. Everything, all including until cancer. Now, it's a little bit of everything. Now, a lot of doctors today are gonna say that yes, stress is linked to every disease. This is common knowledge now. This is not woo. This is not anything. Everything is linked to mental factors. If you go a little bit into what psychosomatic diseases are, to an extent, most diseases are psychosomatic, involving both mind and body. Merriam-Webster Dictionary defines psychosomatic as overriding, involving, or concerned with bodily symptoms caused by mental or emotional disturbance. How does our mind, does our brain actually create physical effects on our body? So when we talk about these treatments against our current pandemic, do you think our mental or emotional states affect the effect itself? We have data that says that this is the case. Some physical diseases are thought to be particularly prone to be made worse by mental factors such as stress and anxiety, and there's all of these things right here. Some people also use the term psychosomatic disorder when mental factors cause physical symptoms, but But where there is no physical disease, for example, chest pain may be caused by stress, no physical disease can be found. Sometimes people just hurt. And there are actually like these new branches of some of these new alternate procedures, alternate medicines, which there are people stating that all sort of pain in the back and on the stomach, migraines, whatever, it all has an emotional factor to it. I might look into that in the future. What are the treatments for symptoms? Each disease has its own treatment options. Physical treatments such as medication operation is usually the most important. Our healthcare workers would usually try to treat person as a whole and take into account the mental and social factors which may be contributing to a disease. Now, this is something that needs to start happening. People don't look at this way. People think that they are supposed to take a pill or to have a BAXX and suddenly everything is gonna be magical and everything is gonna be perfect. Now, if you believe that is the case, it is very likely that it's gonna happen. But if you believe otherwise, that's also going to happen. What is the difference between the people who go through cancer treatment, to any sort of treatment, and then they have this quote-unquote miraculous healing, and the people that don't? What is the factor? What is the variable? We are beginning to understand it. So if we go back to this article right here, okay, it's not a drug, advice, or nerve. Rather, it's the use of the mind-body connection to overcome stress, illness, pain, and virtually any disease known to man. That is the whole thing about the mind-body connection. Simonton is the founder of the Simonton Research Institute. You can Google this, Simonton Research Institute. There's some information about it. Pioneer of the use of imagery therapy for cancer. He was trained by the world's global authority on a three-step scientific approach to mind control concepts. I would say that it is the most powerful single tool that I have to offer the patient, he says. You know, when treating cancer, some of these quote-unquote incurable diseases, you don't really know. So a lot of people come with these alternate methods. Does this mean that you must let go of the original medical treatment? No. This can aid into the treatment. But now, imagery therapy, what they do is do some sort of, what they want to do on people is for them to change their approach, to change their mindset. So this imagery therapy for cancer, this is a tool. What this is a ritual. Just like the ancient, I have spoken about the ritual before, like the ancient rituals. Taking a pill today, it's a ritual, and this is on this article right here that I'm gonna be looking into. It is a ritual. The importance of the ritual is the effect that it has on the person's mind and how it's gonna affect everything. Simonton understands that our minds hold a vast reservoir of power to create perfect health. This free, unlimited power of our minds to heal our bodies is known by Big Pharma as the placebo effect. The unlimited power of our mind to heal our bodies. Placebo effect. Okay, so this is an interesting little title here, the advent of psychosomatic wellness. So if we have these psychosomatic disorders that most diseases are psychosomatic, if your mind can create an illness or worsen an illness, can your mind do the opposite? Long before the FDA recognized the power of placebos, Jose Silva speculated that if most illnesses are caused by the mind, it is extremely likely that most illnesses can be reversed by the mind too. By healing our minds, our emotional state, and changing our thought patterns, we can create physical well-being as well, and this is called psychosomatic wellness. There's another name for it. Psychosomatic wellness, energy healing, intention, faith healing, the placebo effect, call it what you want. What they are starting to understand is that your mind has the power to affect your reality, your body. As I said on that double slit experiment, I'm gonna link it somewhere, what seems to be happening in this double slit experiment, where we're being able to see is the in-between between the non-physical manifesting in the physical. So if our intention or attention has the power to consolidate or to see a physical reality, it's not about manifesting physical things from nowhere. It's about perhaps the ability of our mind, our mental states, to create effects at the quantum level, and our body's main defenses, our main reactions happen at the quantum level. Do we have power to effect this? This psychosomatic wellness, this placebo effect research is saying so. Now, this was known by the ancient people who would do these rituals, the ancient Native Americans. There's a lot of ancient rituals for this. People knew about this. It's all in ancient scriptures how there were these quote-unquote faith healers and these religious figures who taught others how to heal people, and they would heal. Not only was this Messiah healing, he taught other people how to heal. This is one of the first videos that I made in this channel, and I might just go back into all of those and redo them with a little bit more information. But in any case, what is our current society's main foe or main adversary against this? It is Big Pharma. I'm not gonna go too deep into the whole political issue, the big, corporate issue. I'm just gonna touch upon it. I'm just gonna make it clear that this is a huge issue for them. Big Pharma has every reason to be very nervous about the prospect of people having the ability to heal themselves without medical or pharmaceutical intervention. This article speaks about it. I'm not going to go very deep into it, but I'm just going to put it out there. Placebos are getting more effective. Drug makers are desperate to know why. This article, ironically, Big Pharma's attempt to dominate the central nervous system, that was one of the statements from one of the guys who is featured in this article, has ended up revealing how powerful the brain really is. Now, the brain right here, this is one thing that I'm also going to put into question. Is it really the brain? If we think that the brain, I've spoken about this before, whether is the brain the seat of consciousness, does it happen in the brain? If I did, I'm going to link it somewhere on the screen right now. I have to address this because I believe there's something else going on, and the antigen research and some of the other researchers are pointing towards it. The brain might not be the seat of consciousness. It might be a filter for our current understanding. The placebo effect response does not care if the catalyst for healing is a triumph for pharmacology, compassionate therapist, or a syringe of salt water. All it requires is a reasonable expectation of getting better. That's potent medicine. I'm going to read this again. All it requires is a reasonable expectation of getting better. In this article, it goes into the idea that what's happening is the ability of the mind to understand a future is what makes the placebo work. It's not even the pill, it's not even the idea, it is the capacity of the mind to foresee a future. Now, all the woo-woo science and all these new agers, which they say just picture the future and whatnot, I've spoken about this, on how we are quote-unquote praying, what we're actually doing is seeing into the future. See it so it may be done unto you. This is written in ancient scriptures. Everything will be added onto you. Just ask. And what are we actually doing? We're picturing the future. We're creating a future in our minds where we are getting whatever we are getting. And this has been proved by science in some of the experiments. This is very, very interesting. And it ties into a more ontological issue. Because the placebo effect was discarded because it was a quote-unquote psychological thing. What really is this psychological thing that is happening and is having actual results? We're barely beginning to understand. Okay, 6 million people around the world have been trained by Jose Silva's mind body healing method. The same one prayed with Dr. Simon to discover the healing power within and learn how to unleash their inner ability as a healer. Once you master it, however, and anyone can, this is important, anyone can, because the healing comes from within. The faith healer does not heal, maybe, but it mainly activates the person who is having the issue to believe even that they can heal. and they heal. Mind empowerment gives you the capacity to heal any form of illness or ailment, whether it's diabetes, cancer, migraines, joint pains, depression, or stress. As I said, this Jose Silva is one of these faith healers. Okay, go ahead, and people can say, oh, this is woo science, this is just nonsense, this is farce, and whatever. Okay, fine. This is just one of a lot. I'm gonna cover him in the future. I'm gonna go into it, but what I am most interested into is the current research and what they are saying about this placebo effect. So I'm gonna always prioritize that, and then I'm gonna go into the faith healers. And because even the faith healers have science backing them up, there were actual scientists going into the Jose Silva healings and trying to understand what's going on, but everything ties into this quote-unquote placebo. Alright, so that article takes us to this article. Placebos are getting more effective. Drugmakers are desperate to know why. Now, this is a very interesting article. I'm going to link it below. I would suggest anyone who is interested in this to read the whole article. It's a long article, but I'm going to take the parts that are more important about it, because it goes a lot into the industry and the research methods and whatnot. But I just want to pick up the interesting parts, what I find can be related to consciousness and the consciousness research, and this specific article gives us a very good introduction to where the research is going to be going in the future. So this came on Wired, which is like some sort more of a mainstream sort of site for business, culture, society, politics, science, etc. It's a little bit more on the mainstream side, as I said, but this is a good publication. This is 2009, more than 10 years ago. And we're still trying to figure out if the BAXX is gonna help us or not, and all of this has been suppressed. In any case, I'm gonna go through it. So it talks about the placebo effect. It's a pill, real, fake, both can cure depression. I've spoken about this depression thing in the past. I'm gonna link it somewhere on the screen, and I do want to apologize for the people. According to some of the YouTube analytics, some people actually watch my videos as they come out, and they have been following them, and I apologize to them for always linking stuff from my previous videos, because I know they probably watched it or at least looked a little bit into them, but I know that a lot of people are just gonna look at these videos, and they'll look at these once, and maybe they're gonna link they're gonna click the link if they're interested in the whole idea of depression, and they're never gonna see my videos again, and that's fine. But if that helps someone understand something, and that leads them to a new research, a new Google search that are maybe gonna help them overcome something, the purpose and the usefulness of this channel has been accomplished. So I apologize for that. I'm gonna keep doing it. I am sorry about that. So it is not the pill, it is not the actual pill who is curing the depression. The concept, the idea that a pill could cure depression, it's so beyond me. When as we are starting to see the problem is ontological. It's not physical, it's not the physical pill, it's not the connections in the brain that are gonna do something. It's the idea behind it. It's not the connections in the brain. I'm gonna repeat that again. It's not the connections in the brain. Yes, they do help. Yes, they are a consequence of the ontological part of it. The ontological part of it is, what I mean when I say ontological, it's a mental image. It's the origin of the idea. The idea, you cannot touch it. It's not electrical things in your brain. This is not an idea. Going into the literature a little bit more, I'm gonna go off topic a little bit. You go into the whole idea of the Akashic records, the idea that there's a database where all the ideas are, and where the seat of consciousness might be somewhere else. This is something that even the newer theory in consciousness, the OR, orchestrator objective reduction, which I haven't made a video upon, but I'm gonna make it as soon as I can, because that's quite a complicated theory, says that within our brain we have quantum information, which when we die, this quantum information rejoins the whole quantum unified field. That the idea is that it is not in your brain, it's somewhere else. So it's this ontological idea which creates everything else that happens in your body. They talk about the placebo effect just triggering the natural effects of the body, and the body creates opioids which are analgesic, and they can help you in your body relieving itself or healing itself. Yes, all of that is true, but what seems to trigger it is the ontological aspect of it. You cannot tell simply the body, okay, react. It is a true belief in something that is going to create it. Very much like the intention that happens when the double slit experiment is being trialed. Okay, so Merck was in trouble. So they speak a lot about the business in the big pharma business and all of that. Patents on 5 blockbuster drugs were about to expire, which would allow cheaper generics to flood the market. Oh no, how tragic to have cheaper and broad access for these medicine to rich people. That would be tragic. We gotta create false value on things so they can be more expensive for people and somebody can make more profit. Alright, in interviews, key to his strategy was expanding the company's reach into the antidepressant market. Again, go to that video. I've spoken about this. The root of depression might be quite different. All of the links are going to be linked below. To remain dominant in the future, he told Forbes, we need to dominate the central nervous system. How utterly wrong is this approach? We have to remain dominant of the industry. Me, I, my company, the ego. This could help people. Why would they want to dominate the central nervous system? There's a lot of issues with the whole big pharma thing, and this is why I'm not gonna go into it, because politics become very irrelevant when we understand who we really are. And I wanna focus on the other parts of the research rather than go on a 2-hour rant. This is already long as it is, 2-hour rant on why all of this is very, very wrong. But in any case, his plan hinged on the success of an experimental antidepressant codenamed MK869, a new kind of medication that exploited brain chemistry in innovative ways to promote feelings of well-being. True, many test subjects treated with the medication felt their hopelessness and anxiety leave, but so did nearly the same number who took a placebo. So the placebo did the same thing as this new thing. The fact that taking a folks drug can powerfully improve some people's health, the so-called placebo effect, has long been considered an embarrassment to the serious practice of pharmacology. MK869 turned out to be no more effective than a placebo. So the placebo, the body, is the one who's doing things. From 2001 to 2006, the percentage of new products cut from development after phase 2 clinical trials when drugs are first tested against placebo rose by 20%. So this is the whole idea of this article. The placebo effect is getting more efficient somehow. They don't understand why. Okay, when it suspended trials of its build for Crohn's disease, cited an unusually high response to a placebo. They go on to say how other R&D research and whatnot, they've been canceling these drugs because the placebo effect is just so powerful, and it's becoming more powerful by the day. It's not only trials of new drugs that are crossing the futility boundaries. Some products that have been on the market for decades, like Prozac, are faltering in more recent follow-up tests. In many cases, these are the compounds that in the late 90s made big pharma more profitable than big oil. All of these now, they are fine. This is why this is a threat, because they're finding that the follow-up trials with placebo, now that they believe, even the people who are doing the experiment, and I talked about that in that other video having to do with prayer and healing, how even the scientists conducting the experiment, just as very much like in the double slit experiment, even the scientists believing something can affect the whole thing. Now that these scientists are aware of the placebo effect, and everybody is sort of like aware of it, the results are different. Ties into the idea of this holographic universe, ties into the idea that everyone is connected and everything that you think has an effect on the reality at large. Why really are these placebo effects being more efficient than before? It's not that the old meds are getting weaker. Drug developers say it's as if the placebo effect is somehow getting stronger. This is what I'm saying. Why? Why is it? Could it be that the scientists conducting the experiment now are very aware and have a better understanding of the placebo effect? So the placebo effect is even stronger now that everybody's aware of it. They are literally crystallizing, collapsing the wave function of a specific thing with this placebo effect. The reasons are only just beginning to be understood. No kidding. And this is 2009, as I said. Then this should be at the cover of everything. This could change the world, this understanding. Why is it not being understood? Why is it not being funded by government? Instead, we have all of these negativity and protests and all these useless things which we are focusing our attention upon. Drugmakers are realizing they need to fully understand the mechanisms behind it so they can design trials that differentiate more clearly between the beneficial effects of their products and the body's innate ability to heal itself. I'm gonna read this again. The body's innate ability to heal itself. So what they do is they do a control group when they are testing a new medicine or a new pill or a new BAXX. What they do is they do trials. They do the real treatment to a patient and they do a fake treatment to another patient, but it's the same pill. The pill looks the same. The BAXX looks the same, but instead of actual compounds and actual chemicals in it, is just a sugar pill or is just salt water. What they are realizing is that the effects are somehow the same. This is the whole thing. So they are trying to make it so. They're trying to understand what's really happening here so that their products can be better understood, that they can differentiate better between the self-healing body and the actual effects from the whatever treatment that they are doing the trial upon. After decades in the jungles of free science, the placebo effect has become the elephant in the boardroom. Nobody knows what really is going on with this placebo effect. Now they keep talking about how the roots of the placebo problem and how all these tests were going on. They talk more about the industry of big pharma and whatnot. I'm gonna skip that a little bit. So in some of these trials, this person who was doing this research, he demonstrated that the trial volunteers who got real medication were also subject to placebo effects. The act of taking a pill was itself somehow therapeutic, boosting the curative power of the medicine only by subtracting the improvement in a placebo control group to the actual value of the drug be calculated. So this ties into two things that I've been talking about. The act of taking a pill is convincing your mind that something is happening. This is a tool. This is a ritual. Is it really important for, the ancient Native American shaman to be dancing around and to be hitting the subject with herbs or smoke or whatever? Or does this make the subject aware of something which creates in their own mind the healing process? This is a ritual. This is what all rituals are. The candles, the daggers, and the roses and whatever, the altars, all of these are rituals which help the mind create something. Now, the only way that they can test this is another thing that is important here. Now, going into this whole placebo effect and whatnot, I am not suggesting that all medicine should be cancelled and there's absolutely no use in medicine. Of course, there's a lot of trials, there's a lot of research behind what's actually happening physically when an illness occurs or where something is happening. And what they do with this medicine is they counter it just focusing on the chemicals, focusing on whatever is going on, or the consequences. But what they are realizing is that if they do the actual chemicals, they do the actual medicine, plus the self-healing of the body, the idea, the ontological factor of healing, it can be boosted, boosting the curative power of the medicine. This is what it is all about, and this is why I wanted to make this video in the first place. Of course, I'm gonna go with the ongoing research, and I keep getting on, but I've been seeing some of these protests against the BAXX, and they say, oh, it doesn't work, it's not useful, they have done the trial and it doesn't work, why do we have to take more? Why does it work on some people and it doesn't work on some people? Why does this COVID-19 thing is, terrible for some people, and why for some others it's just like a regular flu? What is the variable? It is the ontological factor. If we understood this, if we knew this, we wouldn't have what's happening right now. And if we understood this boosting the curative power of medicine, people would look at the BAXX on a different line. But this also has to do with conspiracy theories and how people think that everything is evil and, there's this bigger force, which there might be something like that. There might be factions, there might be people with an agenda versus people with another agenda. But I'm going to be talking about this when I make that video on the Epicurean paradox and the origins of evil. It's more complicated, and the idea that everything is evil is just not accurate. Okay, the fact that even dummy capsules can kickstart the body's recovery engine became a problem for drug developers to overcome, rather than a phenomenon that could guide doctors toward a better understanding of the healing process and how to drive it most effectively. Why do we keep trampling on ourselves? Why do we prevent this? This could be huge for humanity, but it is my company, myself, my ego, my discovery. I want to make money with all of this. This should be backed up by the government. It shouldn't be like private companies trying to profit. This is something that could help humanity itself. We need to understand that, and we need to advocate towards that. As I said, the same thing is happening with DMT research. It's these big pharma companies trying to figure out what's, the prices and how they're going to make it better and how they're going to make it more profitable. Let's stop thinking in this way. This is something that should be of common interest. It goes on with this nonsense about how they, how big pharma works and, the boundaries and all of that. As I said, I don't want to get too political in this. I'm already a bit over the political level that I want to be in this channel. And I'm not gonna, never am I gonna make it political. Because, as I said, when you understand what's going on, it becomes absolutely and utterly irrelevant. I just wanted to point out this one. And drug companies don't share data, of course. They hoard it. Drug companies do not share data. They hoard it. They have done this research. They have found what's going on, what's happening behind the placebo effect, but they just don't share the data. They hoard it. This is absolutely and utterly tragic. Fabrizio Benedetti, this is the guy, Fabrizio Benedetti, I think, Italian. He has done some of the research on the placebo effect. It's very interesting. Okay, so a lot of people who are maybe gonna look at this video or look at the whole thing of the placebo effect, they're gonna do the research in one way or another, and they might say, oh, this is just woo-woo, it's all about the body just self-healing. One, just go, but this is actual research. Fabrizio Benedetti, he's got a lot of articles. I think he's written a few books. I'm not entirely sure about it. I've heard about this, and I've gone through a lot of researchers and theories. This is the one in this article. This is a real person. These are real new incident placebo, nocebo responses. It's real research. If you're really interested and think this is all woo, well, no, go through all of this and then come back with whatever argument you want to make before going like, oh, this is nonsense and this is just woo and new age. No. There's actual research behind it, and this is an actual research, an actual issue for the drug makers. Drug makers are desperate to know why. Okay, now he speaks about what's actually going on with the placebo effect, and I want to put emphasis on this. Alright, so this is the bulk of it. This is the most important thing about the article. I skipped the whole thing about how, big pharma works and all the nonsense that is occurring. But this Fabrizio Benedetti, as I said, going to his stuff, he came up with some very, very, very interesting ideas that is going to lead the research and even my personal research into a different direction. Part of the problem was that the response to placebo was considered a psychological trait related to neurosis and gullibility, rather than a physiological phenomenon that could be scrutinized in the lab and manipulated for therapeutic benefit. This is the issue. I don't understand it, because when people look at it, they say, "Oh, this is just your mind doing something. This is just a psychological thing." Then why is it creating physical responses? Why is it having an effect? I don't understand how this would be undermined because it's a psychological thing. To me, it does not make any sense. It does not connect. The fact that your psychology, a psychological, ontological thing, can cause an actual effect, a physical effect, collapsing the way functioning to something, should be at the cover of everything. But then Benedetti came across a study done years earlier that suggested the placebo effect had a neurological foundation. US scientists had found that a drug called naloxone blocks the pain-relieving power of placebo treatments. The brain produces, and this is the core part right here, produces its own analgesic compounds called opioids, released under conditions of stress, and naloxone blocks the action of these natural painkillers and their synthetic analogs. Okay, so what they found is a way to prevent the placebo effect with a physical thing, with these naloxone blocks. Now, this is actually a counter argument for the placebo effect, because people are going to say, well, yes, of course. And this is something that there was another article that I had here. This is another thing that we have to take into account. The idea that, you know, when you are under stress, the body itself creates these opioids, and that is all what's happening. The body just heals itself. It has this capacity. But now, when you go further into the research, there are very specific things that happen, and you can dictate exactly what happens. That's not just the body creating something. That goes a little bit beyond, and we have to take into account it. So people think it's only because it's released under conditions of stress and there is these natural things that help you. No, it's deeper than that. This removes the ontological factor of it. This is just a response from the body. The brain produces its own analgesic. Yes, this is the response. This is the physical thing. This is the consequence of the ontological factor. Okay, now after 15 years of experimentation, he has succeeded in mapping many of the biochemical reactions responsible for the placebo effect and covering a broad repertoire of self-healing responses. Placebo-activated opioids, for example, not only relieve pain, they also modulate the heart rate, respiration. The neurotransmitter dopamine, when released by placebo treatment, helps improve motor function in Parkinson's patients. Mechanisms like these can elevate mood, sharpen cognitive ability, alleviate digestive disorders, relieve insomnia, and limit the secretion of stress-related hormones like insulin and cortisol. So what this does, the effect, the consequence that happens, the physical thing that actually happens when people modulate their mind with the placebo effect, is a general state of wellness. This is the natural state of the body. This is what the woo-woo, new age people say, oh, the body is bound to heal itself. And people who are very negative, very nihilist, they say, oh no, there's all these diseases and depression and you can die of anything, and they have this negative thinking. So all of these negative thinking and whatnot, as I said, everything seems to be psychosomatic. You can worsen a situation, you can improve it. Now what the placebo effect is actually showing is that all of these physical responses to the placebo effect just create a general state of wellness. This has been proved by science. It goes deeper into it. In one study, Benedetti found that Alzheimer patients with impaired cognitive function get less pain relief from analgesic drugs than normal volunteers do. Using advanced methods of EEG analysis, he discovered that the connections between the patient's prefrontal lobes and their opioid systems had been damaged. Healthy volunteers feel the benefit of medication plus a placebo boost. Patients who are unable to formulate ideas about the future. I'm gonna read it again. Healthy volunteers feel the benefit of medication This is what I'm saying. Medication boosted by the placebo effect, by the natural self-healing of the body, by the natural ontological idea of healing, of taking medication, of going on a path of wellness, of creating that future in your mind, which is, you know, have things added onto you, which you believe you can heal. Plus the medication, the actual compounds that the scientists create in a lab, is this placebo boost. Healthy volunteers have that happen to them. Patients who are unable to formulate ideas, ontological. This is not about the response of the body. This is not about the body put under stress. This is not about the body reacting to to a virus or whatever. This is about patients who are unable to formulate ideas, to create imagery in their minds, to create these mental images, to create this ontological thing that nobody can touch, nobody can see the ideas of others. You know, scientists have gone to the extent, and I've spoken about this in a video, I'm going to link it on the screen. It came along with a title for a video called "Scientists Are Able to Read Your Mind," and they do all these things where they map the frontal cortex of the brain, which is connected to visual factors, and they use images online which create an algorithm, and they manage to recreate images of what the frontal cortex is perceiving, either through dreams or through thinking, through watching a movie. So they have everything connected to the frontal cortex of the brain, and on a different screen they have all these images which are mirroring the mapping of the frontal cortex of the person watching a movie. So in this other screen they see the images that are gathered online, creating a similar version of the movie that the subject is watching. So they say, oh, they can read your mind. No, they are mapping the frontal cortex. The idea, the mental image that you perceive, nobody can see it. It exists somewhere else, and then you tie into the unified field of consciousness and the database and the Akashic records. It's somewhere else, the seat of consciousness. Nobody can see the image of someone else in someone else's mind. So this is tied into this. Patients who are unable to formulate idea, the ontological factor of it, about the future. I spoke about, I'm going to link it right here actually. I spoke about how in ancient scriptures it is written that, just think about it and it'll come true. Just ask and you shall receive, whatever. What you're actually doing when praying, when going into this deep state of praying, is looking into the future, because you're asking for things for a God. You're telling God, give me this or give me that. And you're figuring something in your mind that is going to create a future. And somehow, by synchronicities or by whatever, something just happens and that thing appears. More related to health, more related to the quantum level of the natural healing system of the body, this could be the case. And these people who are unable to formulate ideas about the future because of cortical deficits, people with Alzheimer, people with these diseases, with these illnesses, however, feel only the effect of the drug itself, because they're incapable of creating this idea. The brain is not able to create this new idea. This is something huge. The creation of the idea does not connect in their brains. This is something huge, and I'm gonna expand upon it because this is mind-blowing to me. This could lead the research into somewhere else, and I'm gonna look into it in the future. The experiment suggests that because Alzheimer patients don't get benefits of anticipating treatment, they don't get that whole notion, they don't create the idea of it, they require higher doses of painkillers to experience normal levels of relief. The placebo effect is not acting upon them because of their inability to perceive future situation. Benedetti often uses the phrase placebo response instead of placebo effect. By definition, inert pills have no effect, but under the right conditions, they can act as a catalyst for what he calls body's endogenous healthcare system. Like any other internal network, the placebo response has limits. It can ease the discomfort of chemotherapy, but it won't stop the growth of tumors. It also works in reverse to produce the placebo's evil twin, the nocebo effect. For example, men taking commonly prescribed prostate drugs who were informed that the medication may cause sexual dysfunction were twice as likely to become impotent. Now, there's a couple of things to cover here. Okay, the body's endogenous healthcare system. Yes, this is what we are establishing here. The body is created in a way that it has its own self-healing system. No scientist, no one really knows what is the intelligence behind the creation of our bodies. Some atheists saying that it just happened, just evolution, just whatever. Everything is designed. There's design and intelligence behind everything. Where does that intelligence come from? No one knows. And we don't care to know because we're too busy just looking into political things. But in any case, it says right here, like any other internal network, the placebo response has its limits. It can ease discomfort of chemotherapy, but it won't stop the growth of tumors. Now, well, yes, like if people go into chemotherapy and they have a positive attitude or something like that, they understand things. Everybody goes and have different responses to it. But this is quite a big statement. It won't stop the growth of tumors. Then what exactly is this quote-unquote miraculous healing that keeps happening often and often in different diseases, not just cancer, not just tumors, in different diseases? This is recorded. This is reported. There are people who have reversed cancer. Why? I don't know. They are brave and they fought cancer and they overcame cancer. What is the variable? What is the difference? So this statement, they say, oh, it has its own limits. Does it? Does it really? Has this been proved? Do the people who beat cancer, the people who beat other incurable diseases, like the thousands of reports online, did they have a limit to this placebo effect? I don't think so. These kind of statements, we have to look twice upon them. It also works in reverse to produce the placebo's effect. This is what I'm saying here, the psychosomatic wellness, or whatever he called it, the advent of psychosomatic wellness. Yes, if these illnesses can be created by the mind, they can be worsened by the mind, it can be reversed by the mind too. So if the placebo effect heals you, then if you think that everything is gonna be worsened and everything is gonna, you're gonna get sick or whatever, it has that the evil twin, that opposite reaction. This is not the placebo. The placebo is just a way to understand it. What is happening at the core of it is that our thoughts have more influence in what happens, at least in our body, than we think. Even just as a basic understanding of it. To understand this, we create a lot of differences in the way we approach healthcare, in the way we approach disease. Okay, so I talked about this argument before, about how the body creates its own analgesic, its own opioids to overcome something. So when the body is stressed, when there's a virus, it creates this natural analgesic and people feel better, and this general wellness. Now that is good, and that is a natural response. We can look at it very objectively, and it has nothing to do with thinking. It had nothing to do with the ontological factor of it, as it is proved by this thing on the people who cannot create a future idea, and it doesn't work here. This is the ontological factor. We can say no, and a lot of people, a lot of the skeptics can say no, this is just a natural body reaction. How does the body know that you told them that this prostate drug may cause sexual dysfunction, and then it was more likely for them to become impotent? What is this particular effect happening? This is the ontological part of it. It's a very specific thing to become impotent. This is a very specific result. This is not about just the body fighting with analgesics, just like fighting whatever this is, a general state of wellness. This is an actual reversed effect where people became impotent because they thought so. This goes beyond. I'm gonna look further into this because this has to start to be researched. It's not about only, as I said, yes, the body creates opiates, it creates this analgesic, this is the consequence, this is the effect of the ontological factor of it, this is a natural way that the body is designed. But all these specific things, like people who cannot create their future, people who have very specific things happen to them, this goes beyond. This tells us that whatever rule, whatever mechanism is at hand is more specific than a simple body reaction. In other words, one way that placebo aids recovery is by hacking the mind's ability to predict the future. Exactly, so if you think the future is going to be you being impotent, that's what's going to happen. If you think the BAXX is going to create some horrible secondary effects, that might happen. Or if you think you're going to be well, and it's going to keep you safer than if you hadn't done it, perhaps that's what's going to happen. It's the mind's ability to predict the future. It's not a physical response. The physical response comes from the ontological aspect of it. It's the mind's ability to predict the future. This is huge. This is going to change the where the research is going. One of the most powerful placebogenic triggers is watching someone else experiencing the benefits of an alleged drug, which is called these social aspects of medicine, the therapeutic ritual. Therapeutic ritual. I love how these things are beginning to connect themselves. And this is more of the same. Well, I said it. I'm gonna link that video somewhere. It's not. I wish I would have done it differently, but it has enough of the basis to understand ritualism. I speak about it. It's merely a tool to convince the mind of something, to create this mind's ability to predict the future, this ontological factor I'm speaking about. Okay, what turns a dummy pill into a catalyst for relieving pain, anxiety, depression, sexual dysfunction, or the tremors of Parkinson's disease? As I said, very specific things. It's not about only analgesic, it's about very specific things like sexual dysfunctions or tremors or whatever. The brain's own healing mechanisms, unless with the belief that a phony medication is a real thing. This is the tool. The phony medication is a tool. Even the medication itself might be a tool. The most important ingredient in a placebo is the doctor's bedside manner, but according to research, the color of a tablet can boost the effectiveness even of genuine meds, or help convince the patient that a placebo is a potent remedy. It's about convincing the patient. It's not about... So what they're talking about here is that if the patient is more convinced, if their level of conviction is higher, the placebo is going to be better. It's not about the natural effect of the body to fight this. It's not about natural physiology. It's the conviction of a patient, the ontological idea of the patient that is going to heal, which is the potent remedy. And it goes on to say about this different branding of the placebos, generic, the name of the brand, everything has to do in it. So it's like this opens the door to hybrid treatments. Try to exploit the placebo effect to make real drugs safer and more effective. This is what we should be doing with the BAXX. Instead of cancer patients undergoing rounds of chemotherapy often suffer from debilitating nocebo effects such as anticipatory nausea, conditioned by their past experiences with the drugs. A team of German researchers has shown that these associations can be unlearned through the administration of placebo, making chemo easier to bear. As I said, again, anticipatory nausea. This is a very specific thing. This is not just the body doing the analgesics and just relieving the body, creating this general wellness. When you turn it the other way, it's a specific effect. It's the idea that it's going to cause nausea, so you're nauseous. You think you're going to be impotent, you become impotent. The mind creates very specific effects just with use of the mind. You can tell the body to do things, for positive or for negative. This new findings tells us the body response to certain types of medication is in constant flux by expectations of treatment, conditioning, beliefs, and social cues. Goes on a little bit more into how the social aspects deal into it. These are things that we do not understand. Like, they do not understand. I don't fully understand. We're barely beginning to understand. It's about the mind creating something ontological. Ironically, Big Pharma's attempt to dominate the central nervous system has ended up revealing how powerful the brain really is. The placebo response doesn't care if the catalyst for healing is a triumph of pharmacology, a compassionate therapist, or a syringe of salt water. All it requires is a reasonable expectation of getting better. That's potent medicine, and that's how this article ends. It's not about whatever is happening. It's not about the compassionate therapist, the faith healer. It's not a triumph on pharmacology. It requires a reasonable expectation of getting better. If you go to ancient philosophies related to the figure of Jesus, he always asked, and this is written in the scriptures, he always asked the subjects, do you think that I can do this? Do you believe that I can do this? It is by your faith that you have been healed. To create these very specific things, not only the analgesic, the natural healing of the body, to create these very specific things, it relates to an ontological factor to the whole thing. The mental image, the future expectation of getting better or becoming impotent. It goes the other way, as I said. It's not only about getting better. You can become impotent, you can have secondary effects, whatever. Is it about the pill, about whatever it is, or is it about the way that you perceive things? That's potent medicine. So, as a bit of a conclusion, as I said, there are no real conclusions in these topics, because this is a research that we are barely beginning to understand, and is barely taking form now that there are different avenues that are connecting to the same thing, and that is basically that our thoughts, our ideas, that ontological part. When I say ontological retains to existence, retains to the metaphysical, retains to these ideas that we create in our mind. The way that we perceive the world, consciousness. These ideas have an effect on a real physical material world that we are beginning to understand barely, and everything seems to be interconnected. Now, this is a very long video. Some of these videos are gonna have to be this long. I cannot shorten it. Some of the ideas just come as I go and as I review these articles or this research or these theories. So I really cannot shorten it anymore. But I wanna keep it like this. So when people just look at one of my videos, as I mentioned somewhere along this video, even if they just look at one, they're gonna get the full picture of what's going on in this research. I'm gonna keep approaching this research on the placebo effect, because there are some great avenues where the research is going, and especially with what I found through this video, through this article, I mean. But there are some things that I really want to point out and highlight even. One of these is that I am by no means proposing that we should get rid of medicine, or that medicine is wrong, or medical treatments, or any of that nature. In fact, across all throughout this video, throughout this article, it is mentioned that the placebo effect is a great tool to boost the effects of the actual medicine or the actual treatment that the scientists developed. As I mentioned somewhere throughout the videos, throughout the article, is that what the scientists have done, and what they do with medicine, with the chemical processes that occur when you take the medicine in your body, these are the physical reactions. They're trying to combat the physical reaction, the physical appearance of things. But what they are finding out is that the psychological, the ontological, the metaphysical, the idea that the patient has on the illness, and as I mentioned also, even the idea of the very people who are in the medical fields about the placebo effect, about the response from the body, all of it has a part to play in it, and they want to integrate the ontological, the metaphysical, the ritual. They even mentioned something along the lines of therapeutic ritual. With the actual medicine, which is going to create the physical effects plus the boosting of the mind, creating these analgesics and these very particular things that seem to happen when the placebo effect is acting. This is something very, very interesting. As I mentioned, it is interesting to link this a little bit to that double slit experiment where I was talking about how the double slit experiment seems to show the very place where the non-physical comes into the physical. This world of multiple possibilities crystallizes into one. And as the title of this article says, the drug makers are desperate to know what's in effect. Why is this placebo effect more efficient, more evident than ever, more stronger? And perhaps it is because we're paying attention to it and we are bringing it into our reality and we are aware of it and we see it more often. It starts to tie into the whole idea that everything is mentalism at the end of the day. All throughout the article, I go into some of the practices from the pharmaceutical industry and how it is absolutely, it's horrifying how to see how they want to profit of these things. They want to create false value with patents and all of these things. We shouldn't live in this type of society. We're talking about well-being and health, something that could help millions of people. If this information, instead of being hoarded for X or Y company, was shared, and we would allow the scientists who are trying to understand it even better. What a better situation to explain to everyone that they have an actual part to play in the treatment of their illnesses. Because a lot of people feel very useless when they are fighting an illness or a loved one's illness. To say, I cannot do anything. We just wait for the doctors or the medicine to do the thing. Well, they're finding out that this is not the case, and it actually might be more important, this ontological, metaphysical, the part of the ideas of how people perceive, and even the very particular effects that it'll have, and you cannot escape from it. It's either gonna help you, or if you think it's going to worsen the situation, it's going to worsen. So you just simply cannot escape to it. They say that you cannot escape the law of attraction. You cannot escape these universal laws, this fabric of reality that we are beginning to understand. And just going briefly into the most important thing about this article, about this video that I'm making, is that to recognize that we're not talking about, because one of the counter arguments to the placebo effect and the effectiveness of the placebo effect and the reality that seems to be underlying the placebo effect being an ontological, metaphysical part of, everything. Because when we say the placebo effect, this is just one way to understand what's going on. Very much like people could call it law of attraction. People could call it the holographic universe, and you're trying to synchronize to something. People can call this anything. This is just a way for us to understand it. But what we're talking about is fundamental, universal laws, mainly the one of mentalism, which states that everything is mental and everything proceeds from the mental state of things. Now, this is proved by science. If you go along the research, there's the scientist who says that people who have Alzheimer or any other sort of cortical diseases or the things of that nature, where the brain is not making the connections, the ideas that they produce, they cannot look into a future, they cannot cohesively arrange their mind in a way where they perceive a future. So they cannot generate an idea. I talked about these ideas being the metaphysical, the ontological part of things. If they are unable to do this, they cannot have the effects of the placebo effect. This is not about the body reacting to stress, because this is the current belief for the counter argument that there is more to the placebo effect than we think. Some people are saying, oh, it's just the body reacting, it's just the body's natural ability to heal itself. Yes, this is the physical part, as I mentioned, but this is triggered by an ontological, metaphysical idea of the patient getting better. I talked about it, I put some links on it. As I said, all of the links are going to be below. I think I cannot put so many links to this video, but they're all gonna be linked below, every relevant thing to it, because this is what our ancient philosophers are telling us, when the figure of Jesus is telling people how to pray, how they have to go into this place and ask for it and believe and just go into the future. This is basically deep prayer, is going into the future and asking, perceiving a different future, and everything will be added onto you, either by synchronicity or so whatever. And I made this argument: you're not gonna manifest a car out of nowhere, but at the micro level, at the quantum level, perhaps you could modify at the cellular level, and this is what causes all of these things to happen in the placebo effect. So it is the metaphysical, the ontological, creating the physical part. So if we only focus on the physical part, it's a simple reaction from the body, creating this analgesic, these things that are going to help you into promoting this general state of well-being. But the second part of the argument is that if this is the case, so why is the body producing very peculiar things, very specific things, like in the case of sexual dysfunction? How are people, when they are told that one of the secondary effects of something is going to be sexual dysfunction, and this is what actually happens? That is very particular. That is not the body creating analgesics or anything. That is not a natural reaction to stress. That is something very particular that the body is creating with it itself, based on an idea of this metaphysical idea that created a very particular thing in the body. Same with nausea, same with other very specific things that are happening. So what this tells us is that the fundamental law of mentalism is being understood, is being researched, and is getting to our medical fields and beyond. If you're on the path of finding the truth about reality and our purpose as humans on Earth, the information that I have to share concerns you. After a lifetime of research in philosophies ranging from Buddhism to the occult, I've encountered themes and patterns along some baffling information that is beginning to be seriously studied by science. A Rational Divine Outline, The Ghost of Jesus, is the first iteration of this project, where I analyze the message of Jesus without dogmatism, fanaticism, or religious bias. You can find my work available on Amazon on the link below. If you find this work valuable, consider subscribing, sharing, and following me on social media, as it'll help others in the same path to find this information. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.